Okay, this is Tash Street with Positive Out Loud, and I'm going to interview somebody I just met today, actually. Mal, last name?
Jones.
Mal Jones. I don't even know his last name. Interviewing Mal Jones today. He did a workshop today with about 5 other people doing the Wim Hof method. And now I'm feeling so fabulous. I don't even know where I'm going to go with this. But I think the first question I want to ask you, Mal, is a little bit about your background. What made you want to go into something like the Wim Hof? What made you steer in this direction? Where were you at before where you wanted to steer into this direction of just being like totally in the health and wellness industry?
Yeah. Well, thanks for interviewing me. This is fun and good to meet you. Yeah, my story is a long story, but I'm not going to tell a long story right now. But I grew up I'm from Ireland originally. I grew up in Dublin in Ireland in a fairly working class environment. Unfortunately, as a child, my mother suffered from pretty severe depression. So we had a lot of difficult times in our childhood with her being, manically depressed, always worrying, always fighting. So there was a pretty dysfunctional home. Not short of love, but a lot of dysfunction. And for me, what did that mean to me? As I grew up, I became very determined for success. My mother worried about money. She worried about not having enough to survive. And so it ingrained in me a drive to not to have to worry about money. And that's positive and it's negative. So for 30 years, I started at the bottom and I built up a career and I worked for some good companies and started some of my own businesses and had lots of success. However, what I realized as I got a bit older and started heading towards 50, that while on the outside, I looked like a very successful guy, had a lot of the things that people see as successful. You got the house, you got the 2.5 kids, you got the car, you got the vacation, whatever. But I realized deep inside me, I was pretty miserable and pretty unhappy. And this went on for a couple of years. And as I got closer to 50, I realized that if I didn't do something, I was going to be in trouble. I had got to a point where had so many different things wrong with me, from high blood pressure to cholesterol to autoimmune diseases to anxiety to depression to, I can go on all day. Taking 18 pills a day. 18 pills a day.
Wow.
2 injections a month for Crohn's disease, and drinking too much alcohol.
What were those injections? What did that involve?
They were biologic injections, which are basically used to significantly reduce inflammation. And most autoimmune diseases are caused by inflammation. In fact, all autoimmune diseases.
Did your insurance cover that?
It did, yeah, it did. I was very lucky. My wife works for Microsoft, and so we had, great insurance cover. But, medication has its effects, positive and negative. And I was slowly but surely going into a depression, I guess. And I felt I was in a fog from all of these prescription medications, painkillers, and from alcohol, basically.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
18, wow.
So I had to make a decision to, keep going the way I was going and be more miserable and probably lose everything that I'd ever worked for, which was a great family and friends, or change. Yeah. And then that's when I got really interested in health and making my life better.
So what was the first thing what first change did you decide to take on? What had caught your fancy? What is it that you decided, well, I think I'm going to try this to help with my health?
It's interesting. It's hard to pinpoint. Over a period of a couple of years, I started to, well, first of all, I knew I had to address a couple of things. One is this insatiable appetite for success, whatever that is. This insatiable appetite to want the next thing, to have another company or get the next job. Things that mattered to me in the old days were things like title, I had to lose that. So that's a psychological thing. It's not a workout thing. It's not a medication thing. I had to teach myself that to figure out, I guess, what's important to me. And I made a decision that while I had a lot of fun doing that, it brought a lot of baggage and a lot of problems for me. And I had to finally accept that I can no longer do that. So the first thing I had to do is to change the way I think about success, about life, and about living. So
it was more like a mindset that you had to shift.
Completely. You know, what is happiness? You know, the ultimate question the world's always trying to figure out, right? What is happiness? Well, it's different for everybody. And there's nothing wrong with having a great career. There's nothing wrong with being very successful. But there's a point for everybody where they have to change, or, you know, you have consequences. For me, my body was falling apart.
I mean, yeah. For instance, just something that everybody knows. Look what happened to Steve Jobs.
Right.
He was very driven. He had, so driven that, it ruined his health.
I'm no Steve Jobs. I wish I was, but actually I don't wish I was. But no. It's interesting. I've read some of the transcripts of his final days. I know Bill Gates went to see him, and that was an interesting conversation. And they'd fallen out for years. But one of the things he did say was he had a lot of regrets that he didn't use his talents and his money for better good. He had a lot of regrets that he didn't distribute more of his money. And he had a lot of regrets that he was kind of obnoxious to a lot of people. And in the end, he had a lot of regrets. And here was a man who was one of the richest people in the world, but it didn't help him. He was dying, and he died, ultimately, a young man, which is incredibly sad because he left behind a wife and I think 5 children, which not a lot of people actually know.
Wow.
He was very, very quiet. And I'm not sure if it's 5, but he had a family that nobody ever heard about. And he was miserable, really. And it was only when he came close to his death that he accepted it, and that was inspirational for me too, because, it pushes you to say, well, I don't want to wait till I'm dying, because that's too late. It's too late to fix things with people maybe you've upset, or with yourself. There's so many things you can do in this world. And the quote I like to use a lot is, when's enough? And for me, that was the turning point. I had to change, or my health was going to take a nosedive. So the first thing, I changed my mind, and I really changed my approach. That takes a long time. And there's a lot of tools you can use, just meditation, certain types of movements, certain type of exercises. With the Wim Hof method, that certainly focuses you in very quickly with cold exposure. There's a lot of things you can do, and that's still an ongoing piece of work. And I think it'll always be an ongoing piece of work. When you're wired a certain way, you always have to find yourself going off again and then pull yourself back. It gets easier. It gets a lot easier. So for me, it was trying to find ways to do new things that made me feel good, number one, but also distracted me from that constant drive. Right. Which was basically, in my opinion, going to kill me. Right.
The drive to go,
yeah.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. It's when I look back now, it's hard to look at it because you don't see yourself very well at any time in your life. I think I do now better than I ever did. So you allow yourself, your mind kind of tricks you into thinking everything's fine, and you got to keep going and just don't think about this because that's painful, or you don't want to talk about that, or you don't want to look at that because it's going to hurt.
Right, exactly.
Right, and so your mind's very clever. It wants to save you pain, but unfortunately, short-term pain reduction has some significant long-term consequences. Right. So that's when I turned to health. And while I'd always been relatively healthy conscious, I had let my health fail. And
the thing I've heard is that there's a lot of trauma that's held in our body. And with that trauma, that's where that depression comes in, and that's where people are always trying to mask it with either food or alcohol or drugs or whatever it is that their addiction of choice. Yeah. So what did you do to just look at that trauma head on?
That was a hard one. So, most people who know me in the world, even people who are pretty close to me, would not have been aware of my upbringing. And again, I hold no bitterness towards my parents or my mom. She had an illness. There's no question about it. In those days in Ireland, people didn't talk about depression. It wasn't a disease that people talked about. So she suffered a lot, and for that I'm sad. However, that doesn't stop just because she can get up every day to make us miserable. The fact that she did is something that you have to deal with. And I didn't. And the way I dealt with it was to park it and bury it so deep for many years that I even kind of forgot about it myself. So most people who know me and now hear my story are kind of stunned, because I had an incredible ability to come across as the guy in charge, the guy who was always on top of things, the guy who knew what, right? That was me. But deep below that, and then for a lot of years, I didn't even see it. But below that, there was a lot of pain going on. And, as I approached 50, that pain was starting to surface. And I was trying to
the body doesn't lie, right? It's going to tell you what's going on.
It's going to catch up. And
it wants to help you out, right?
It wants to help you out, right? It knows its job is to keep you alive. So if that means bringing stuff up. But I resisted. I'm strong. And I thought I was strong.
Yeah.
And I resisted. And you keep pushing things down, and then as I started to ease up on the pressures of that lifestyle and take a step back, it actually got worse. So as soon as I left the last sort of corporate job I had, I actually got worse, and I started to take more pills because now my mind had too much time to think. I wasn't distracted anymore. So you start taking more pills, you start to drink more alcohol because, hey, I don't have to get up tomorrow morning. I can get up at 10 instead of 6. Or, I don't have to worry about it. My responsibilities were dying. You would think that would actually be good. It went worse. Because your mind's like, that's great. Now I can really mask it. But ultimately, the mask had to come off. And, we men in particularly are really bad at showing emotion. I don't think... other than as a child falling and hurting myself, I hadn't cried in 30 years.
Wow.
But when it came, eventually it came with a bang. And I literally cried for 10 days.
Right.
And that was 2.5 years ago. And I got through it. And I got a lot of help. I'd like to say I did it all myself.
And you came out on the other side. And
I came out the other side. And I will tell you,
do you feel lighter? Do you feel lighter?
I feel lighter. Yeah. I've got this hunger for life every day. I'd lost that adventure. I'd lost that that lust for life. I see things differently now. When I go for a walk in the forest or something, I see it. Whereas before it's like I was just passing through.
Right.
And yeah, it was great to get out in the forest, but let me back to concrete jungle and whatever else we want to do.
Right.
But now
you weren't in the moment, that's for sure, right?
I was never in the moment. But now I am. When I go for a walk, I don't do what I used to do. Which is, okay, I gotta go for a walk. Got 1 hour. That's it. 500 miles. Yeah, let's get it done. And you don't see anything.
Right.
A very good mentor of mine, a guy by the name of Jerzy Gregorek in San Francisco, who created a program called the Happy Body. He's one of my mentors through all of this.
Okay.
Very interesting character. It's a whole other story. World champion weightlifter, left Poland in the very dark times. But one of the things he said to me was, when you go for a walk, slow down. I'm like, what do you mean I want to slow down? That's my exercise. I want to power through. And he goes, slow down. Start to enjoy the walk. Look around you. See the people. Look at the forest. Look at the trees. Look at the lake. Because I do a lot of walking Green Lake. And I just like, he's nuts. But I went home from San Francisco. The first walk I did in Green Lake, I slowed down. I saw things I never saw before. Bizarre. Now my walks are completely different.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a 4-year-old, and you have to slow down with a 4-year-old.
Oh yeah.
And she sees everything, and I point out things for her. Let's smell these flowers, or let's touch this leaf. And I think as we get older, we forget to do those things, and because we're thinking about the next thing we have to. Oh, I got to get home. I have to make dinner, and then I have to do this, and then I still have that work to do. Instead of just being in the moment. And when you're in the moment, those things will naturally get done later on, right? But when you're in that moment, you're walking with your child down the road, you can see these new things each and every day. It's fresh each and every day. It's so amazing.
Well, I'm reading a book right now. One of the things I've done since my mind has been freed is I read a lot. I've got a hunger to learn, and every day, and I read a lot of diverse stuff on health and alternatives and hacks and stuff. But a book I'm reading right now by Michael Pollan, which is about I think it's called How to Change Your Mind. It's about psychedelics and magic mushrooms and all those Mexican peyote cactus stuff, that psychedelic drugs is and how they work. It's very interesting because I never understood that before. I always thought it was just crazy hippies, right? But it's a plant, and how it works is it literally changes a part of the brain that is using recall. So when you walk out your door, you don't see all the things in your driveway because you think you see them, but if something's out of place, you probably won't notice because you're not really looking. It's your recall is just reminding you what should be there.
Exactly right. Your memory, right?
Your memory. Now, what the psychedelics do is very interesting. It just turns that off. So when you walk out your door, you're seeing it like it's for the first time. You're seeing it like a 4-year-old child. Now, we don't have the gift of memory of what it was like to see a leaf for the first time. But if you've ever seen a video of a child seeing something for the first time, it's quite fascinating. It's just such an awe-inspiring. But we don't see that anymore. Psychedelics allow you to re-see that, right?
And more, right?
And more. Well, actually, not a lot more. There's obviously more to it than that, and there's a lot of controversy around it either way, and I don't judge it in either way. It's a plant. People should allow to do what they want.
Exactly.
But there are some powerful proof now that it can cure PTSD, massive, anxiety disorders, and it can do it in literally days as opposed to years. So there's a lot of thought there. But as you say, the 4-year-old is, we don't see the world around us anymore. But if we stop, just look at things. It's shocking how we go into this automatic way of living. And it's sad because there's
like
beauty.
A robot, right?
Yes, there's beauty all around us. And the beauty doesn't get less beautiful. In fact, different times of the year it gets even more beautiful. And for me, one of the joys of my life now is I take my time to look around me. Not as much as I should,
right,
but a hell of a lot more than I used to, The joy of the world.
Exactly. I do that now too. I mean, I'm in my late 40s, and before I was just focused on where I needed to get from this point to that point. We're not really looking at the path in between. And I think the path in between is where we really need to be focused. What would you tell to people out there? What would you suggest to get them in that right direction where they're feeling happier inside?
It's a great question, and I want to qualify it because people will often say to me, and in some ways they're right, but I want to show how they're not right, is they'll say to me, that's okay for you. You've had a decent career. You're financial in a financial place where you can afford not to work. You're in a place where you can afford to go try all these things, and that's great. And I say, yes, okay, I accept that, and I'm humbled by that, and I'm lucky. I get that. However, everybody has time, right? There are things we can do, simple things that are free and take very little time. So if you've got 4 kids and you're on minimum wage and you're doing 2 jobs, we all have 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes a day. We all don't have to join, expensive health clubs or pay expensive doctors or advisors. So my advice to people is, it depends on where you are on the spectrum, but let's assume you're at a place where you're working really hard to make ends meet and you got a family you're trying to raise and do the best for everyone, is just start by subtle things like stopping for 10 minutes a day. And meditating sounds very daunting, but even just trying to stop your mind for 10 minutes a day, just sit back and give yourself 10 minutes of silence. Now, there are a lot of ways to learn how to meditate. You can find a lot of things online that are free nowadays. There's always, and it's different for everybody. So focus on themselves for 10 minutes a day. If you've got a busy house and you can't go anywhere, go to the bathroom. Hide for 10 minutes, right? So that's one thing people can do, and everybody can do that, right? Everybody can do that. Another thing is to try and take some time, and you can do this over a period of time, to define what would make you happy, or what makes you happy today. Are you happy today? Again, people say, well, that's easy for you. Of course, I'm not happy. I'm working in this job and I don't get paid enough, and I got 4 kids and I got a big mortgage. Of course, I'm not happy. And I go, okay. There are actually ways to change that for everyone. And I've seen people take, a 90% reduction in their income and become happier. Because they adjusted their life, because they realized the life they wanted, they could have it for a lot less. Right. And how can you take 90% of your income away and be happier? People do it all the time. It's really scary, and I haven't done it because I didn't have to, but all you got to figure out is, and it's a big all, is what is going to make you happy. Now, I believe everybody can have a goal to get to a place that's going to make them happy. It's going to be a tough one for everybody, and it's different for everybody, but you at least ask yourself the question. And then if the answer is, well, I'd be happy if I could do A, B, C, well, then kind of try and make a little plan to get there. And if you only take one step a day, and it's going to take you 10 years to get there, well, it's better than waiting 10 years and still be in that same situation.
And it's amazing because right now we're in the day and age where we're even aware of this. I mean, 30 years ago, people were just going down the pathway of what they needed to do from day in, day out. They were just like going from one thing to the next thing, not even aware that they weren't happy.
Maybe that was better. I don't know. I think you're right. I think why are we more aware? I think one of the reasons is I don't think there is more knowledge, and there's more science, and there's more doctors, and there's more investments in research, and there's all of these things. But there's also easier communication. I think a lot of this stuff has been known within the medical/psychology areas for a long time.
Right. Well, yes, with social media, and there's so many things that are out there now that people are realizing.
Yes, and it's kind of dangerous in some ways. There's over information, and we have to be careful. One of the things I do actually every single day is I spend 1 hour every day listening to some podcast / video, something that I believe is going to educate me on something either new or continue to educate me on something I'm doing. The hardest part about that is figuring out what not to watch. Because there's so much good stuff out there.
There is, yeah.
And every day I have to check myself and go, oh yeah, I got to watch this guy. I got to watch his podcast. But I can't. I can only do so much. Or else you get into a stressful situation trying to unstress yourself. Oh my God, I haven't got time to read all these stress articles. What am I going to do? It's silly, but you can go there. And I've gone there. And then I go, no, stop. So you have to, again, you don't want to stress yourself getting unstressed.
Getting into nature is what's going to unstress most people, don't you think? Just going for a walk, breathing that fresh air, being one with the trees, with being next to water. I mean, that always gets me grounded.
I'm going to tell you what a jerk I used to be. I knew this guy years ago who used to talk about getting into nature and going into the forest and, hugging the trees and I was the one going, you're nuts. He's just crazy. Right? What are you talking about?
Right.
Psycho. Anything I could think of, right? And I ignored it for so long. Of course, we all like to go into nature, it's great, but I never really got it till recent years. And there's nothing I like more than going on my own, maybe with the dogs, but without other humans. Sometimes just get out into the forest. It doesn't have to be a big forest 100 miles away. There's lots of stuff nearby. And just sitting down and meditating, or just closing my eyes and listening to the sounds. Now, if you told me this 10 years ago that I'd be happy doing that, I would have told you you're crazy. Right. But I don't know exactly what it is. I have my ideas, it's the energy of nature, and we're just a very small piece of it. And the more I read, I realize, the less important we really are in the scheme of things. In fact, I read a really interesting article recently, and it talked about, why are we here? And the answer is, we're just a petri dish for all these bacteria. Right? And when they're done with us, they'll
there's a lot more
toss
bacteria
aside.
than there is us.
Right,
That's for sure.
Right. So it's an interesting perspective. Sometimes it helps you put yourself in perspective. We're not that important as a race. We think we are. We think we control nature. We don't actually. And there's a lot of people will say, as we start to destroy nature, and nature will actually one day go, okay, I can't allow myself to be destroyed, so I have to destroy the people who are destroying.
Right.
And then some people have theories, well, this has happened before, and who knows. But the point is, 10 years ago, I would have laughed at the idea that I'm going to sit in a forest and listen on my own and meditate. Yet now when I do it, it changes me as a person. It changes my whole demeanor. It changes my mood. It changes the way I feel for hours and hours, maybe even days afterwards. And it's really expensive because it costs zero.
Right. So it's that whole philosophy, less is more.
Absolutely, but yes and no, because in the forest, there's a hell of a lot more in the forest than there is in your house or in your office, right? And I think that's kind of the beauty of a forest or a beach or whatever it is. Just so much going on, and it's constantly changing, that it's never the same experience.
Right.
Everyone can go for a walk in the forest.
So, would you suggest people do the Wim Hof breathing? Did you go down that road?
Wim Hof for me is his breathing. Wim Hof method is a combination of breathing, cold exposure, and focused meditation, concentration, whatever you want to call it. For me, it was one of several things I do latched onto, but for me, it was probably the most profound. And there's a couple of reasons, I think. One is the cold exposure for me. Meditating is hard. And I've been practicing to meditate for many, many years with very little, if any, success. In recent years, I've had some more success. Wim Hof method and getting into the cold exposure was the most rapid way to focusing, because basically you don't want to freeze to death, right? So your mind doesn't worry about, okay, this meeting I got to go to tomorrow, or I got to pick up my kid there, because right now it's just focused on surviving, right?
Breathing, right?
Breathing and surviving. So it's like a hack into clearing your mind. Right? So when I get into that ice bath or a cold sea or a cold river, my mind just literally blanks as I focus on my breath, and it forces me into that little place. But it forces me, and then you're there, and it's a hack, and you can enjoy it. So would I recommend the Wim Hof? Absolutely, I would. It's definitely not for everyone. If deep breathing might scare some people, I tell everybody, just try it. Go get it. Someone who knows what they're doing. Go to a workshop. Watch his videos online. Whatever you do decide to do, you can watch it all online practically for free. I think it is all free online, and just try it out and see how it makes you feel. So yes, I do recommend it. Yes.
So what's your morning routine? What do you do when you get up to get you kind of in a space of being grounded?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was a few years ago, I was never a morning person. I've always been my best hours of work were usually between 8 o'clock at night and 3 in the morning. Oh, wow. Yeah. My wife's the opposite. So that was kind of fun. But since, I've changed a lot of my habits, I'm still not a morning person because that's a DNA thing. But I am up very early, and I try to spend, before I have my coffee, I try to spend 10, 15 minutes just sitting down and just, I guess, waking myself up, because it takes me a little bit longer. I try to drink some water now before I have my coffee. I like to put some lemon and lime juice in there just to kind of give myself a little bit of a detox before I throw in all the caffeine. And so that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do most days, and it doesn't really matter about the weather, is I get outside. Okay. There's a lot of truth to what people talk about circadian rhythms and how our bodies are governed by light and the rhythm of the day. And if we don't actually get outdoors, Our body's not really sure if it's daytime yet or not. So I just like to sit outside with my eyes open, don't look into the sunlight, but just look out and get myself 10 or 15 minutes of just literally been outside with the air, the oxygen, and the light. And that really sets me up for the day. So that's sort of my morning routine. I don't tend, a lot of people do their breathing first thing in the morning. I don't. It just doesn't work for me. It's probably the optimal time to do it because it sets you up for the day. But I tend to wait, and I've got it kind of now down to, midday, right? I'll probably keep working back a little bit. So I get through, I do those couple of routines every single morning. I have a little app that plans my day as well. So I check what's going on today, where do I have to be. And usually around lunchtime or before lunch, I'll go do my Wim Hof breathing or go for a swim or do something like that,
Yeah, I noticed for me with the Wim Hof breathing, a lot of times I do it in the morning, but there's certain days where my body's like, no, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
So I think it's best just to listen to
Absolutely.
what it is where you want to be in that moment. So, and sometimes I do it later at night before I work out. So it just all depends. As long as I get it in the day, I'm happy.
Yeah, I think the secret is, as Wim said, just do it, and wherever. And if it's, if you don't feel right, it's right. Yeah, I did it on a flight one day. I don't recommend it because you realize after doing it on a flight one day, there is very little oxygen on a flight. And that was the day I realized how little oxygen there is on a flight.
Wow.
So I don't necessarily recommend, but I'm in the Wim Hof Mile High Club. So, but it's absolutely, you need to listen to your body. I used to force myself to work out 6 days a week.
Oh, wow.
I used to force myself. And I go and I go, I don't really want to do this, and I'm not in the right frame of mind. I'm hurting and I'm sore, and I never listened to my body. You remember, when I was younger, the trainers were all about no pain, no gain. What a disaster that was, right? Where are those trainers now? They're in rehab somewhere with massive pains, right?
Right.
And I unfortunately injured myself weightlifting younger, and that's, it's not good. So you have to listen to your body. Some days I don't do my breathing. Some days I don't get into the cold. Other days I do it twice because I really want to. And you have to listen to your body and you have to listen to your mind. If you force yourself to do anything, whether it's working out or breathing or meditating, you're counteracting what you're trying to do in the first place.
Right.
Stressing yourself out to do something that de-stresses you. It's got to be insanity, right?
So do what you love, right? That's all.
Do what you love and do it when you can and when and sometimes we all need to be motivated. And I always recommend, having somebody, a partner or a friend, or it can be even somebody online or a group of people online. And Wim Hof has a lot of people online. Any group you're part of nowadays, you can be online and people just encourage you and say, hey, Mal, you haven't done the thing in 3 days. Are you all right? And I go, yeah, shit, I kind of better. I'll do it. Yeah, thank you. Sometimes we just need a bit of encouragement. Life isn't perfect. No. Things get in the way. But so always find somebody you can trust and somebody who has your best interests at heart and just tell them, if I'm not doing what I want to do, will you kind of push me a little bit,
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions for you. Yeah. This question kind of intrigues me. I know you said you were driven by success for many, many years, to be successful, to have more. What are you driven to do now?
It's a great question.
What motivates you now?
Life. It sounds really sad, but not having pain, not having physical and mental pain constantly. I had physical pain constantly.
So the body and mind.
Body
so
first.
Connected, right? So connected so that the mind will give the body pain and vice versa, right?
It's frightening, people say, well, you have headaches all the time, but all the scans show nothing, therefore you don't have headaches. Well, actually you do. Somebody's got a headache, they got a headache, right?
Right.
Now, you can say, well, that's all in your mind. Right. All pain is in your mind. Now, the fact that you're creating it, it's still pain. So what motivates me is to do all the things I do that are good for my health now is not having pain, number one, physical and mental. The second thing that motivates me is watching people get better, physically, mentally, and in all aspects of their life. Just watching people making strides towards, abandoning some of the old things, maybe not eating as much sugar, maybe losing some weight, maybe it's getting healthier and building some muscle, maybe it's, teaching their kids not to eat certain things. Whatever it is I think we're at a turning point in America where the dependence and the ignorance, I guess, on the American diet is starting to be lifted. I think there's a lot of information. There's a lot of people can see now. If they continue to decide to eat their processed foods and eat all their, additives and all these preservatives, they know they're doing wrong. So while it's easier and it's cheaper and it's, at least people are getting more educated. So when I see people make a change like that, like I did, I'm hell of motivated to do it. And what I want to do with and I have a program that I launched last year, 50 Plus Longevity Lifestyles, which is to help people who are, like me, they're 50 or approaching 50 or over 50, and maybe they're taking too much medication, maybe they've got pain, maybe they've got anxiety or depression or something, and they just don't know what to do. Because I was there, and it's a frightening place to be, especially for people who are type A personalities, entrepreneurs, business people. I relate to them better than I do some other types profiles of people. So, and they tend to be the ones who will never look for help because they're individuals, and I'm the only one who really knows. So therefore, I must be able to fix my own problems. I tried that; it didn't work out very well for me. And so now I try to make myself available for people who want some guidance on how to start, and what to do. So that's what motivates. That's what gets me out of bed every day.
To help other people.
Help other people. Help myself, number one, because unfortunately, if you're not well, you can't help other people.
Right.
I never understood that for years. If you're sick or mentally or physically sick, you can't be a good parent, you can't be a good husband, you can't be a good friend, and you certainly can't help other people. So I used to be ashamed to say I put myself first, but I do. And I have to look after my health first. And as a result, whatever's left, I will give out to other people.
Right.
And it becomes that sort of, then the more you help people, the more motivated you get when you see somebody else get a little bit better or make some positive changes. And then they go and help some people. And suddenly you've got this group of people who are out helping people. And it's just this cycle of goodness. It just gets better.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some recommendations that you would give to people who are listening to, where should they look? Where should they go? Can you give out your website, give out the information for the people who are looking to make those changes that you're talking about?
Sure. I got a website. It's 450plus.com, 450plus.com. But look, we live in the world of the internet. There's a lot of information. The good news is there's a lot of information. The bad news is there's a lot of information. Unfortunately, it took me a long time to figure out there's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of people just trying to make money. There's a lot of people trying to sell solutions that are not real, or at least they work for one type of person, or you got to be really careful what you do. But there's certain things that are never going to do any harm. Simple things you can start with is go for a walk. It's free, and the benefits, unless you're in severe pain, most people can at least walk. And when I started with some of my pain, it hurt. I built it up really slowly, and I got back, and now I walk 4 or 5 times a week. And just walking, and if you can get to a park, preferably, if you can get to a lake or a forest, even better. But hey, don't worry about that. Even if you're going to get out around your neighborhood for 15 minutes with your dog or on your own or whatever, just take that time and relax and enjoy it. That alone is going to start generating hormones in your body that are going to want you to eat better. It's going to start reducing your stress in your mind. So you're going to come down. You're probably going to start sleeping better.
Right.
And so there's this cascade effect by just doing a simple thing like go for a walk. And you have to start somewhere. There are lots of things you can do. It also depends on what medical conditions you have, if any. Nobody should, I know it's obvious, but you can't go do things, sudden changes in your life if you've got some medical issues like heart or whatever the problems you may have without checking first.
Right,
Be careful.
absolutely, right.
Be careful. However, there's very few things that can be wrong with us that don't allow us to be able to go for a walk. It doesn't matter if it's a slow walk, it'll get better, it'll get stronger. And even just doing that will start. Other things you can do are, make a conscious decision that every day you're going to watch a 15-minute video or a 30-minute video or a podcast. Reach out to people like me.
Do you have a Facebook group or anything that?
I do. I have a 450 plus 50 plus longevity lifestyles actually Facebook group. Again, if you go to the website, it's all those links there. That's all free. We don't sell anything, so just come enjoy it. Please say hello and contribute. That's all I ask people to do is contribute to each other, because we all have ideas that nobody else has thought about. So at least give back. Don't just take, just give back.
And it's probably a great place for support for us to motivate each other.
Absolutely.
Send out positive energy to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing that you created that.
It is. It's nothing special, except it's only special because people contribute.
Right.
And yeah, I can kick it all off and I can do things, but it's the conversation that starts. And then somebody chimes in and said, "Oh, I had that issue, and then I talked to this guy, and this really worked for me." Oh, and you suddenly you're building this momentum. No person can do that. It has to be community. Right. And all I ask people is the only thing I ask you to do. There's no payment for anything. Is please, when you've benefited, try and help the people you were, maybe 6 months ago or 9 months ago. Because if we do work together, it becomes fun, and it also becomes self-motivating and keeps us all on track. Because everybody has bad days. Everybody has bad days, and you just say, I don't feel like doing that today, or I don't whatever's bothering you.
Some days we just need to lay in bed for a while, right?
Do it.
Nothing wrong with that.
The secret is when you do it, don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Just I'm going to lay in bed for 3 hours. Great. Done. Move on.
How many of us do that?
Not many, unfortunately. Well, not if you got a 4-year-old. So
yeah.
With teenagers, it's a little easier because they don't get up anyhow. So, but yeah, I mean, it's literally it just don't get bogged down with all the information's out there. Reach out to groups like mine. There are lots of other groups. Just reach out. People will tell you what's good information and what's bad information. And there are some amazing people out there with some great ideas. But just take on the goal that every day I'm going to go to bed and I'll have learned something. Now, maybe what you learned, you go, well, I just learned that's not a good idea. That's still learning something, right?
Right.
Okay. But most times for me, I go to bed going, wow, that was a really interesting article, or that was a really interesting TED Talk, or that was a really interesting thing this guy did, and it taught me something. Because I stopped learning for a long time, and then I kind of thought I knew it all when I was 30, and then when I was 50 I realized I actually knew jack shit. Right? I didn't, and now I read constantly when I can, just to just new information, because it helps you make better decisions about not just your health but about your life.
Yeah, so instead of getting on TV and watching some silly reality show or something, not to say I never do that, but I do that once in a while, but get on a podcast and learn something to help your health, to help your mind, to get you in that place where you're going to feel happier and more grounded. It's
very interesting you say that, so prior to my change, I used to go down to my TV room every night at 9 o'clock after dinner, and I'd bring down my bottle of wine or two, and I'd drink my wine, and I'd watch mindless TV till 2 or 3 in the morning.
Right.
I haven't watched TV other than one basketball game recently with my daughter in the NBAs because she's into it, and one football game at the end of last season. They're the only two things I've watched on TV in the last year.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that.
No, and you know what the irony is? I built myself this lovely home theater, right? And I haven't been down there. And the irony is I don't miss it. So what was I getting if I don't miss it? I was getting nothing.
Right.
Other than, tripe news and just negativity maybe,
Right.
So...
now that you go on that point, this is the whole reason why I created this Positive Out Loud. It's because it's so easy to get trapped in the negativity of the media and the news and the reality TV and all the marketing that's coming at you, all the processed food. I mean, they make, these companies have scientists make it so that you have, it's called craveability. Just so you'll crave those foods over and over again and buy them over again, even though they're not good for you. I mean, there's just so much negativity out there. And so I wanted to create this Positive Out Loud to put the positive energy out there, put the things out there that's going to help you feel healthier and whole and feel like there's not that missing piece inside of you. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and I think it's a fantastic cause, because it is a negative place we live, unfortunately. And we can blame A and we can blame B, but you know, somebody asked me last week, and I had to think about this, is how do you make a difference in the midst of this sort of craziness that we live in, a crazy world? And it doesn't matter if you're left or right or middle or political or non-political or racism or all the stuff that's going on around us. It's a very disturbing time for a lot of people. And you know, and how do you make a difference is I think we have to navigate that. We all have our opinions. I think the way we, you know, make a difference is just to listen. Just try and listen. And we're all guilty. Believe me, I'm guilty of not listening. I listen more than I used to do. But just if people could just open up just a little, I think it would make a huge difference. If people would just look at positive things like we used to look at positive things in a positive way, and not just immediately go, well, you know, Taz said that, therefore it must be wrong because I don't agree with her. Yes, well, he's an ass, so nothing he ever says is good ever. Right. And that's where we're at. We're at that polarized, you know, everything Trump did is wrong. Right. And before him, it was certain people were, everything Obama did is wrong. It doesn't matter if it's right, it's wrong. And it's unfortunate because when you're in a situation, if you put it back to your own relationships and your own family even, if you're in a situation where you're creating that division between people in a family, it leads to incredible amounts of negativity and wasted energy and sadness and depression and anger and all those other things. Now, you do that across a society and we see the results every day. People are doing crazy shit. People are saying crazy stuff. And I honestly believe most people get up every day to be positive. Most people don't get up every day and go, you know what, I'm going to piss some people off today. No. It happens because of society and because of ideas and jealousy and all these types of things. And what I say to people is just try to have an open mind, even for 1 minute before you jump in. It's the hardest thing to do is to say nothing. Just stop and pause. It's really difficult, especially for people like me who are type A characters, because we know the right answer. Of course I know the right answer. It's me. My answer is the right answer. And even with the change to my life, I still have to keep myself checked without jumping to conclusions. And what I found is when I listen to people who disagree with me, I don't necessarily change my mind, but I get a different perspective and go, well, you know, I never really thought about it that way. I still think they're wrong, but now I kind of understand. So my empathy goes up a little bit, which means my anger, irritation goes down, my stress goes down. They're probably a bit happier because I actually listened. So we're starting to bridge gaps among us. And if we do that and really try and do that, we will create more positive news. We will create more positive vibrations and more positive feelings among. And I think we're in a really bad place, but I also think we can get back really quickly.
We're getting back.
We are getting back.
On that note, I think we're good.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Mal. I really appreciate this interview.
Appreciate it.